Ann, and I'm so excited that you're here on the Dating Advisory Board. Ann McCabe Triana is the President and CEO of Wealth Advisor at Curo Private Wealth. She has been interviewed on Federal News Radio, WTOP sister station, ABC 7, News Channel 8, NTN 24, and Telemundo, Washington. She was recently invited to speak about multi-generational wealth transfer at the 2013 Barron's Top Women Financial Advisors, but she was also chosen as one of the top wealth advisors by Washingtonian, and she is the adjunct professor at AU. So congratulations.
Thank you, Jen. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I know your story, but can you give the audience a little bit of background of like how you came to be, how did you actually became to own your own wealth management company?
Sure. So I'm from Atlanta originally, going way back, but I've been in the DC area since right before middle school. So I went to middle school here, high school, went to Mason for my degree in economics. And when I graduated school, I was recruited by American Express Financial Advisors to become a financial advisor. So that's how I got into the business initially. And from Amex, I went to UBS, and then in March of 2010, decided to go independent and start my own company. So I'm obviously majorly oversimplifying all those years and everything that happened in between. I always share with people that the first 3 to 4 years were very challenging. It was long hours, lots of cold calling. I almost quit so many times, I can't even tell you, but I'm grateful that I didn't and really feel like I've found my calling and what I'm supposed to do.
And I think that translates a lot into the dating world, where people are saying, well, I'm going to just give up. I'm not going to date because, hey, I had a string of bad dates, or I can't find anybody online, or I go out and I'm not meeting anybody. I mean, that's the same in the business world. Like, so if you just give up on your clients, that's it. I mean, maybe you didn't put the effort into it.
Right, exactly. And I remember having the feeling when, after I graduated, I thought I was going to go in one career, and that didn't end up working out for various reasons. And I remember feeling similar, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm lost. And giving up a little bit of that control and the obsession over the unknown and over the future for me was really helpful, because this ended up really finding me. And I think in the dating world, it's similar. The more you're obsessing over something and thinking about it all the time, I think if you can let that go a little bit and trust that whoever is meant to be with you is out there and you'll find him or her, and just sort of give up a little bit of that obsession, I think that's really healthy.
Yeah, and I think so too. I think that once you stop focusing on, I should say it this way, once you start focusing on yourself and what you want to do and what you're going to accomplish, that's when the people come in that you don't expect.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
yeah, because if you don't know what you want or what you bring to the table, how are you going to know exactly who you should be with, right?
Right.
So
and if you have your purpose and your mission and you're going to say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to put my time into my job and in my friends. And when you're a happy person, you tend to attract happy people. But if you're in a negative Nancy kind of mood, I mean, you're probably going to attract some negative Nancys in that kind of scenario.
Right. And you're definitely detracting the positive people that you probably want in your life, because positive people do not want anything to do with negative people.
No. And they can turn around and be sarcastically funny about it too. Which is a bonus. So this is why I'm so excited to have you on the show, because the main focus that I want to talk about, and I know the listeners will want to hear as well, is how important it is to invest in yourself and your future in business and in dating.
Yeah. I love this question, and I love that you say invest, that you use the word invest, because we could go in so many different directions with that word, right? You can invest in your business, you can invest money in your business, time, your energy, and the same goes in the dating world. But I'm a huge believer that we have to invest in ourselves. And you mentioned as well, making sure that we're happy and we're healthy and we're taken care of. So from a personal perspective, you can invest in a gym membership to make sure that your physical health is taken care of. Notice I said invest, not donate, right? So many people
donate their gym membership fees.
That is not a nonprofit. No. So do not put that in the philanthropy category. That is just a waste of money. But if you invest in a gym membership and you use it, and you also invest time in understanding yourself and what you want out of life and what you want out of a relationship, what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept, what I call non-negotiable issues, then I think that's great. And it's when you're good with yourself that you can really be great in a relationship.
Yeah, because you know who you are, right? And if you're just spending too much time trying to be someone that you're not. And we talk a lot about this in the business boardroom. And if you walk in the boardroom one way and you come out and act a different way, and that's why are you making it so much harder on yourself?
Right,
I
exactly.
mean, because do you even know who you are?
Right.
I mean, do you look in your mirror and like, oh yeah, you know me, I'm the same way in business.
You're authentic.
Yeah, I'm authentic.
I love it.
I mean, and but there's times where, you have to look in yourself and say, those people that complain, I can't meet anyone, I can't do this, I can't do that, or it's not working out in business and I can't figure out why I'm not getting the clients. Well, maybe there is some issues with self-confidence or really knowing what you want, right? So,
exactly.
And just being okay with who you are, because you are enough. You're not, and don't compete with other people. That's the one thing that, I've seen a lot, and especially, and then I know it's part of the sales, people try to pin the other salespeople up against each other, which I think is the competition. Like, oh, look at her numbers. Like, she's, way ahead of you. Well, that's not a way to get them motivated. I mean, talk about collaboration. Go to networking events together.
Right.
I mean, I started teaming up with another girlfriend at work. I mean, number one, she's fun, but on the other side, I mean, that's how you build it. It's not a competition. I mean, and my mindset wasn't always like that until I started, going to quality events, becoming quality networking groups that said like, hey, it's collaboration.
Right.
Right.
But you changed your mindset.
I did.
And that was the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it wasn't about anybody else. It was about you. And I think that's huge.
Yeah. And like I said, having that mind right. And you talk about physical, if you're working out, I mean, it's just proven that'll help you concentrate better. It's better for your overall health. That it creates endorphins. So you're not, on a negative spiral that you woke up wrong side of the bed.
There's so many
positives on it. So when we talk about an investment strategy when you're young, because I think that a lot of the millennials, I don't know if you're seeing a change in that or what, but I really think that I wish I would have had that information now when I was younger. Right.
Yeah.
Because I probably would have, been able to do a little bit more, just having that education from them.
Right.
So let's go through how you would suggest an investment when you're young, even if they don't have enough money to invest. So just kind of go through that.
Sure. Yeah. So to answer the question of whether or not I think it's important to start when you're young, I cannot stress how important it is to start now. I don't care how old you are, as soon as possible now. And before I came over here, I ran some numbers. So I'm actually going to put some numbers behind why I think this is so important to start investing as early and as often as possible. So let's say we have two people. They're called Selma and Patty. I felt like naming them that.
That's good. Selma, let's go Selma and Patty. What?
Yeah, let's see who wins this race, because this is a race. This is a competition.
Okay, good.
So Selma is smart, and she starts investing when she's 25.
Okay.
And she invests $2,000 per year. It's like $160 a month on average. But she only does that for 10 years. So she invests $2,000 a year from the age of 25 to the age of 35, and then she stops. So she saves a total of $20,000. Then we have Patty, who waits until she's 35. Okay. So she doesn't start at 25. She also invests that same $2,000 per year, but she does so for 25 years. So that's a total of $50,000. I'll do the math for you since I did it before coming here.
Okay, thanks.
So Selma saves for 10 years, just to summarize. Patty saves for 25, same amount per year, assuming an 8% average return per year. Which one do you think has more money?
Why are you putting me on the spot here?
Do you want me to-
Patty.
I would think so too. Most people would think so, because Patty saved way more money for a much longer amount of time. But Selma actually wins.
Wow.
So the numbers at the end is Selma will have almost $200,000 and Patty will have about $146,000.
Wow.
Over $50,000 difference. Okay.
Now, how did they get to that? What did they invest in?
Well, we can talk about different investment strategies, but it is important actually when you mention that, because I'm in an industry filled with disclosures, that I do need to disclose that I'm not promising you can get 8% return and past performance doesn't equal future results and all that good stuff. But the point of this exercise is to show you how powerful it is when you start early. You start at 25, you start at 30, 35. I don't care where you are, but starting now versus waiting 10 years, you get to save so much less because you have your money working for you.
Right.
So this is the principle of time value of money, which is so exciting. It's, the compound interest and like the snowball effect that I get really excited about.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a huge profit there. I mean, and that's just one way of making the money.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's
exactly.
And we'll get to the other strategies in a second. So when you talk about strategies like the strategy in business and how we can apply that in the dating world. So we talk a little bit about, being aligned with who you are and knowing who you are and having the right mindset.
Right.
But I mean, what would you say to somebody that said you have somebody that's, is newly single or, a widow, or, I mean, what would you say to them? And we'll talk about on the business side for financial, and then also just for us on personal.
So my biggest advice to people who have just gotten out of a relationship, whether you were dating and you broke up or you were married and you are divorced, is to try as hard as possible to get out of the denial phase as quickly as possible. And so when you break up or you have a divorce, it's a grieving process. It's very similar to what you go through when you lose someone. And so I very much understand and respect that denial is part of the process that you go through, but the sooner you can get through that denial and accept your new reality as what it is. My favorite saying in life is, it is what it is.
Yeah, me too.
Right? So as soon as you can accept what is and what is no longer, the sooner you can understand where you are from a financial perspective, what you want your future to be like, and start actually mapping out a plan for you to get there. So what we work really hard with clients who have recently divorced is trying to get past that, I wish this would have happened, what could have been, what I thought it was going to be. I get it. I'm compassionate towards people who are going through a situation like this, but it's my job also to push them over that hump and say, okay, let's actually get some strategies in place. Let's rebuild your new financial plan. This is an awesome chapter in your life. We get to write it the way that we want to. But getting out of that denial is so important, as soon as possible.
Yeah. Now, so when you talk about that, I mean, what's your advice on financial planner, like having that budget and budgeting, and talk a little bit about how you come up with that plan?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of it has to do with their personal situation. So one of the things that we'll look at are their expenses, and we like breaking expenses down into fixed. So expenses that are what they are: your mortgage, your utilities. You can't really change those unless you were to sell your place. But then we also talk about discretionary expenses. Those are the fun ones, like eating out and shopping and travel and things you have much more control over. So once we understand their expenses, then we talk about income sources, whether that's employment income or alimony income or whatever else, whatever other income sources they have coming in, and we look at what that looks like. So from a budgeting perspective, that's where we would start. And we would also give recommendations and advice on where we think their money should go. Certainly we talk about saving if they have children. We talk a lot about college planning.
I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, we talk about retirement planning, of course. And I'm a huge believer that you need to make sure your retirement is set first before you are concerned about fully funding college for your children. So we talk about priorities, and we all have limited cash flow. In an ideal world, we'd have unlimited cash flow and we'd be able to achieve all our financial goals. And that's unfortunately not the case. So we have to deal with the limited cash flow that we have.
Yeah, no, and that's true. When you talk about the cash flows, I mean, what do you suggest for couples or even married couples or dating or living together? Maybe they're not getting married, but they're still sharing a place. What do you talk about separate bank accounts?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if they should be joint, what do you suggest?
Yeah, I think a lot depends on the couple. So if you're living in a place together, I do think having at least one joint account makes sense, so you can both deposit money into that one account and pay bills for your place together. What I definitely caution people on, though, is if you do decide that what makes the most sense is to join your accounts, which that's fine if that's what you decide for your relationship, but I still very much recommend that both parties keep their own individual accounts as well, because I think it's really important to have some money in your own name. You never know what's going to happen, and joint assets are jointly accessible, so both parties can get into them, can get access. If things go down with your relationship, you want to make sure that you have a pot of money that you can access and, nobody else can.
Yeah. And I know we talked a little bit about this before we, when we were talking, I think it was yesterday, when you're talking about widowers. Right, because we talked a little bit about how you said that most people don't plan because of if they said, what was its statistic? I don't remember.
Almost 80%.
Yeah.
Almost 80%. Yeah. So the statistic is almost 80% of us as women in the future will be solely responsible for making financial decisions because of either divorce or because we will outlive our spouse. Our spouse will predecease us. So I see in a lot of couples, typically and stereotypically, the male is the one who makes the financial decisions, the investments, usually the one who has the relationship with the financial advisor, which is all fine. But that doesn't mean that you as the woman, as the wife, can be in the dark, nor should you be in the dark. So
you should have access to everything.
You should have access to everything. Your name should be on everything. There also should be full disclosure. You should know exactly what assets you have, what insurance policies you have, what your house is worth, what you owe on your mortgage. I'm not saying if you don't enjoy that, you have to do it every day, but at least on an annual basis, you need to have a snapshot of your entire financial position. Super important.
I think you're right, because there's so many times where you may not have a financial planner and you may not be the spouse that takes care of the bills, and so you don't know what's coming or coming out. So there's no way for you to say, well, I don't even know what my expenses would be.
Right.
So charting everything out makes sense.
Yeah, or if your spouse passes away and you don't even know what life insurance policies you have in place.
Or passwords to anything.
Right. How are you supposed to, be able to access anything? How are you going to know whether it's this company or that company that you have to call to get the life insurance proceeds? A life insurance policy is only as good if you can reach the company and prove that. Yeah, exactly. Prove that your spouse passed away.
Yeah. And so I'm going to go back and look a little bit more on the investing side, just because I'm very curious. How do we know what to invest in? There's so many options out there, and I know how we'll talk about how it translates in the dating world too, because there are so many options, there's so many sites, there's so many apps. It can be overwhelming from both the business side and personal side. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So investing strategies are really, really personalized. So it really does depend on your situation. When we're building a portfolio for clients and we're managing a portfolio for them, we do so understanding their current financial position, understanding their goals, their risk tolerance, their time horizon. So it's very personalized. I do very much believe that working with a professional is very important. A good professional, a competent professional is really important, because we can help people decide what that investment strategy should look like. And we have access to all the, what I call the financial widgets, right? The stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, all the stuff that's out there that is very overwhelming. We live in a time where information is abundant, right?
Yes.
We do not have a lack of information. The problem is I think we have too much information, and it's hard to make a decision. But Vanguard, who is the company that is the king of do-it-yourself investing, came out with a study a few years ago. They were trying to quantify the value that a financial advisor brings to a relationship. And mind you, they're all about do-it-yourself investors, so you wouldn't think that they would
come out with that.
Yeah, that they would pay for a study like this. But what they found, which was fascinating, was working with a competent advisor who follows best practices, as they put it, and they have all the best practices in the study, you can get an average net excess return of about 3% by working with a good advisor. And that's net of fees. And about half of that, 1.5% roughly of that, is because advisors help you manage your emotions when things are going crazy in the markets. So there's so many studies out there that if we let our emotions drive our investment decisions, we will not make money in the market, and we will actually lose money. But if we can control our investments, buy when we should be buying, selling when we should be selling, right, then we will actually win in the game of investing. And that's what a financial advisor can help do more than anything, I believe.
So they have the dating advisory board, right? You got your advisors and financial and coaches. And I think it shows true in the personal side as well. How do you know who is a good investment? What are their qualities? They may be up one day and what may be down the next, but how long do you hold on to that? Is it a good investment?
Is it a good investment? Yeah, that's the key, because you don't want to hold on to an investment, or a relationship for that matter, just because you think it's going to come back. It was good once and it may come back. If you held Enron stock, for example, all the way down thinking, oh, it's going to come back, obviously we know how that story ended. So I do think it's also important to know when to walk away, right? When to sell or when to break up, as it were, in a relationship.
Exactly.
You don't just want to hold on for sake of holding on. But if you have a good investment strategy, or a relationship, then you do want to hold on, and you know that there are going to be ups and downs.
Yeah,
and
peaks
you know,
and valleys. I mean, it just happens.
Right, and nobody's perfect,
No.
so you know, holding on may make sense.
Right. So that kind of gets into when people do get discouraged, you know, in these, you know, abyss of the dating world, right? And we talked a little bit about that. I mean, how would you, what would you say to those girlfriends? Do you have any of those girlfriends who tell you stories like,
Yes.
oh, I'm doing this app, but like, do you have any interesting stories of how it's completely overwhelming and what you actually say to them?
Yeah, I have lots. And I hear that I'm on this dating site and that dating site, and I paid this amount of money to, you know, hire a matchmaker, and this crazy story and that crazy story. And I think going back to one of the things that we talked about initially is sometimes when you are too obsessed over something, you need to give yourself a break. You need to just step back and maybe take a break from dating. I don't think that that's a bad thing, assuming you're not completely quitting.
Right.
You're just taking a break, you're taking a step back. And I found that when you do that, you sort of release the pressure and you say, okay, you know what? I trust it's going to happen. I'm not going to work on this for a little while and I'll come back to it. I actually think that that can, you know, you never know.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing I want to say to those people, those friends or those parents who are pushing the kids, like, well, you're at a certain age, you should be getting married, you should be having kids. Don't let anybody pressure you into anything.
Right.
I mean, especially in investments.
Right.
I mean, if you're finding someone pushing back at you, just be, well, this is my life. This isn't your life. Well, why are you trying to make decisions for me?
Right.
Because they're not being aligned with what I want to do right now. Right?
Yeah. I think it's important to be careful about taking advice from people who don't have to live with the consequences. Which is
really good quote.
Yeah, which
I
is
like
pretty
that.
much anyone that's not you, right? If people are giving you advice, but yet they're not the ones that are going to have to live with the advice they're giving you. Giving advice is easy, right? And I'm not saying don't take advice. I mean, we all take advice from people that we trust, and we give advice in our, you know, our business lives, but just be careful.
Yeah, because that goes in the business world too. Oh, you shouldn't take that job. You shouldn't take this position. Well, why? I mean, give me a solid reason why. That makes sense.
Right.
Not just because you think I should be doing real estate.
Right.
No. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but that's not my passion. That's
Yeah.
not what I want to do.
This is your life,
Yeah.
and you only have one chance at this
Yeah.
life. So be authentic to yourself and do what you want to do.
Yeah. Then that, you know, being authentic, surrounding yourself with authentic people. I mean, that kind of leads me into my next question about how do you grow your network in business and personal. I mean, what's the business strategy to that?
It's really, really important, I believe, to have like-minded individuals around you. And when you're building your network in business, or for that matter, friendships or, you know, potential relationships, I think it's really important to share values, to have similar goals, right? Or at least be really open with sharing those goals. But I think having similar values, especially in business and in dating, is really important, because if you're surrounding yourself with people who don't share the same values as you, there's going to be conflict and there's going to be issues. But I think just like word of mouth and referrals in business is amazing, from a dating perspective too, getting referrals from people that you know and you trust, that's a great strategy.
Right.
When somebody comes in to meet with us who's been referred to us by someone, there's already that credibility. There's already the level of comfort. There's a level of trust. And it's the same thing in dating. If you get referred to somebody or introduced to somebody by a good friend or colleague, you know, that you trust, that's huge, because...
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, you are who you surround yourself with, right? So what are the chances that, I mean, hey, it may not be a romantic relationship, but it could be a friendship.
Exactly.
They could refer you into something, you know, a job or another person, or, you know, I think a lot of people are afraid to ask. So there may be people out there, but they just don't want to ask. So I don't know who to ask. I don't know what friends of mine to ask. Well, guess what? If you don't ask for anything, I mean, the worst thing that they can say is no. And people have a hard time dealing with rejection in the business world and in your personal life. But I'm just like, if someone says no, I'm like, sweet, okay, keep it moving.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't bother me. I mean, how is that going to change my day?
Right.
If someone doesn't like me, you think I care?
Right. And most people,
negative.
most people don't want to say no.
Yeah.
Right. Most people like helping. And if you come to them and say, listen, I really need help with this, most people will really want to help you.
Yeah.
I think that also goes back, though, to being crystal clear on what it is that you want.
Right.
Because if you're not clear on what you want, you can't express what you want, and people can't help you, you know?
Yeah, I know, and they can't. And, you know, you talk about prospects. Like, so prospecting and dating, like you said, we talked about it can go in the networking, but in prospecting for a business, I mean, how important it is to have a kind of streamlined approach on what you're doing? Because it can, like we said, it can be overwhelming.
Right.
Now, if you're going for certain clients and say, like for me, like it's in nonprofits or defense, I mean, it can name tons of different nonprofits. Like I have nonprofits, I have, who are some of the other
government
ones?
contractors, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
in this city.
Area, like defense contract. But I mean, when you're looking at that, use that core group, and then you can say, hey, here's here's another company that I'm working with. Here are some of the things that they have been working on that we help implement a solution for.
Right.
So you kind of build that credibility, and always help your customers out first. I mean, and then if you give and give and give, eventually, but from a genuine place.
Right. I think giving great service is the best marketing or prospecting you can do. I think that spending time servicing your clients really, really well is worth more than spending advertising dollars, marketing dollars. Because if you service your clients really well, how could they not talk about you? Right. They want to talk about you. They want to share you with their friends and their coworkers. Yeah. So that's the best type of marketing. But I think also pre-qualifying is really important, both in business and in dating. So when somebody is referred to us, we'll hop on a call with them, an initial call, and we'll get to know them a little bit better and understand what it is that they're looking for and make sure they're not looking for something that we don't do. And we also share high level what we're looking for in clients and what we do and what we don't do. And from there, we'll schedule an initial meeting. Right. So I think in dating, pre-qualifying is also really important. Yeah. And it goes back to those non-negotiables, right? What are you not willing to deal with? What are you absolutely not willing to?
Yeah. Give a list.
A list, yeah.
List it
Write
out.
it down. Be able to express it. Know it.
Yeah. Own it.
Own it. Right. Exactly. And pre-qualify. So, hop on a phone call before you go on a date to make sure you can tell a lot by somebody in a conversation. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. So when you talk about that, servicing your clients, right, and that good customer service. So Bob London, he's amazing. I think he's so brilliant when he came up with this when he was talking about it. He said, you need to go and do a health check and see how your customers are doing. Because I think nowadays, especially your top customers, I mean, you may have hundreds of customers, but the people that you talk to on a regular basis. It's the 80-20 rule. Right. I mean, yeah. And so who are you most in front of? So you want to say, okay, well, number one, I want to keep that relationship going. So what am I doing above and beyond, right? What's the health check on that? But how many times do we do a health check in our relationships? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think we do a lot. So maybe, say that nice thing like, wow, like this is awesome. Or like, let me help you. Like, I'll do the dishes tonight. Or, add something small, write a note to make sure people feel appreciated. Because I think in this day and age, I think a lot of times like, well, we're not getting along. Well, why? Like, what are you doing to help the situation? Right. Are you going above and beyond like you would do in business for your clients? So if you're not writing a letter to your clients, would you write a letter to your wife or girlfriend? I mean, if you're not doing that, then why are you doing it? Right. Yeah, and communication, having an open conversation. We can tie this back to finances too, because last time I checked, top on the list of divorces has something to do with finances most of the time. It's up there at least in the top 5. Yep. And so having a conversation about finances, being fully transparent about finances, ideally when you are still dating before you even get married, making sure you're on the same page, making sure you understand each other's money personalities. Is one a saver and one a spender? Those are all important things to know going into a relationship. Right. And then maybe you should have your separate accounts if that's the case. Exactly. So we have a few more minutes. So I want to find out, tell me about some of the exciting things that are coming up for you. Sure. One of the most exciting things I'm doing is I'm writing a book with a few other financial advisors here in the area. Wow. We are in a mastermind group. We've been meeting for a few years. And last year, we all decided that we wanted to write a book that teaches our clients who are parents how to teach their children about finances. Oh, that's amazing. It's going to be great. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Oh, yeah. When is that coming out? Do we have a date yet? I'm hoping probably within the next 6 or 7 months. Nice. So we are actively working on it right now. And it's nice because the 4 of us are working on it together and we all have different perspectives. Which is good. But we share the same values, which is huge. Same core values. Yeah. We all trust each other implicitly. So that's good. That's fun. And the other thing that we're constantly working on, which has been fun as well, is we send out a monthly market update video that has been pretty well received. Oh, I love it. Thank you very much. So they're normally 3 to 4 minutes, and I only speak English. I do not use financial jargon. I'm not going to be throwing a whole bunch of nerdy jargon at you, but it's just a nice quick update on what's going on in the markets and what we're paying attention to and what our outlook is for the markets for the year.
Well, I think that's important because do you often see that instead of like watching the news or watching the channel?
Right.
I mean, that's really good.
Yeah, and we keep it nice and quick because most people don't want to be, they care about it and they're interested about it, but they don't want to be watching a 30-minute long, commentary. So, so we're constantly working on that as well.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Anne, for being here today.
Yeah, it's good
so
to
much
be
fun,
here.
and I learned a lot.
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.